Welcome to the Benning Report. Coming up in this edition, soldiers compete for Best Ranger.
And the Sergeant Major of the Army recognizes the excellence of the Rangers.
Later, special athletes go for the gold. Welcome to the Benning Report. I'm Melissa Bell.
And I'm Katie Cook with the Fort Benning Public Affairs Office. Thanks for watching.
After 3 days of enduring obstacle courses, stress shoots, rope climbs, and runs, the finish line was a welcome sight for the 48 competitors who completed the Best Ranger competition. Each competitor laid it on the line and showcased the optimized human performance soldiers must aspire to in order to be successful in the Army.
But in the end, only one team would earn the right to lift the trophy.
Sergeants First Class Timothy Briggs and Jeremy Lemma, both from Airborne and Ranger Training Brigade, earned their place in history as the winners of the 2015 Best Ranger competition. They were crowned champions during a ceremony that recognized the 24 finishing teams. On hand to award the trophy was the namesake of the competition, retired Lieutenant General David E. Grange Jr. and current Sergeant Major of the Army, Dan Daly. Briggs and Lemma have known each other since 2013 and were partnered for this competition in January after brigade tryouts resulted in their top finishes. Their winning strategy included studying legacy events and training to achieve their physical peak, with an emphasis on nutrition.
We took what we knew from the last two competitions. We ironically competed against each other. We had some input. I have an endurance background, so we based everything off endurance. We knew that if you got to be there at the finish to finish first. So we knew that was goal number one.
Both men acknowledged the quality of their fellow competitors and knew going in that winning the title would require everything they had. The punishing events of the competition have forged a lifelong bond between them and taught them something about each other.
Just the train up, we talked about how grueling the train up was, and so what I learned from him on that was just how to just follow an extremely strict training plan and just be so tedious with it. I don't know if I could have done that by myself or had I had a different partner. Just being so just determined with that training plan.
This is by far the toughest guy I've ever met. Not the strongest, the toughest. I guarantee I wrung every ounce of energy out of him. When I was running up the stairs at the CWSA and I looked down and saw him chasing me on the gravel, I about choked. Because that is the best performance I think I've ever seen. It's not the fastest performance, but it is by far the toughest performance I've ever seen.
Come on, right here to me.
Briggs and Lemma will have their names permanently engraved on the Best Ranger trophy as they join the legacy of the Best Ranger competition. Sergeant Briggs was on the winning team in 2013, becoming only the third person in the 32-year history of the competition to win Best Ranger twice. David Wright, Fort Benning TV.
It was quite a celebration as the winners were crowned Best Rangers, and quite an honor for Sergeant Major of the Army, Daniel Daly, to take part in it. In an interview after the competition, Sergeant Major Daly spoke about the motivation he received while watching their physical stamina, mental fortitude, and impressive performance.
I mean, when you hear those soldiers yell out Rangers as loud as they possibly can, it's just got to mean something in your heart. It's got to mean something, and then the term esprit de corps really comes true, because you can see the passion that these soldiers have for what they do every day. The sacrifices and the challenges they face every day, and the compensation which they receive is not equal. But yet they continue to do it, and they continue to do it for one thing, because they're part of the profession, the Army profession. It's about trust. They trust each other. They trust their leaders. They trust their soldiers, and their esprit de corps is unmatched by any other organization in America.
Sergeant Major Daly also spoke on the complex environment in which the Army operates and the benefits of maintaining a partnership between conventional and special forces. Soldiers today need to be prepared for anything, and he challenges the force to seek the opportunity to go to Ranger School.
It's hard. It is tough. It has been that way since it first was born, and it will always be tough. But those who seek the challenges and overcome them will be better soldiers tomorrow.
Every 2 years, the Armor School holds the Gainey Cup. What is it, who competes in it, and when will it take place? David Wright speaks with the 316 Cav for the answers. David?
Okay, thank you. I'm out here right now on Harmony Church. I have with me Lieutenant Colonel James Hayes. He is the commander of 316 Cavalry. He's here today to talk about the Gainey Cup. Lieutenant Colonel, thank you for coming out and spending time with us today. I keep hearing about the Gainey Cup. For those that maybe don't know what it is, what can you tell us about it?
Yeah, definitely. So the Gainey Cup is really a competition to identify the best scout squad from across our Army. So scout squad comprised of 6 soldiers each. They'll be coming here to Fort Benning from 4 to 8 May to compete in this competition, which we call the Gainey Cup, named after Command Sergeant Major Gainey, the first Joint Chiefs of Staff Senior Enlisted Advisor.
Well, very good. So I know this is an opportunity. There are some aspects of this competition where it's very spectator friendly. It's a chance for the public to come and watch the soldiers in action. If someone wanted to do that, what's their best plan for being able to get the best look at the action?
The morning of the 5th at 0600, we'll do an opening ceremony. That's fairly spectator friendly. It'll occur on Brave Rifles Field here on Harmony Church. And that'll comprise with just some opening ceremony, some short comments by some senior leaders, and then all the teams will get on a start line and they'll start off on a run. And that'll start off 70 hours of continuous competition where the teams will be continually going from event to event with limited sleep, limited chow, really just testing their physical ability and their natural skill as scouts.
Well, that sounds pretty rough. You said it's going to start with a run. Could you give us maybe a rundown of some of the events, what kind of things they'll be doing, and also maybe how is it different from the last time this was held 2 years ago?
Yeah, sure. So just to start off on how it's different from how it was done in 2013, this year it's a little bit longer and definitely a little more physically demanding. So there was a lot more downtime in 2013 between events. This year we've sequenced things so it's continuous competition for these team members. So again, probably less than 10 hours of sleep where they can find it, but maybe 2 meals a day if they can figure out how to get those into their schedule, but they'll do a lot of things. So really the biggest event, the biggest spectator-friendly event will be the closing ceremonies on the 8th. So starting at 8 o'clock, all the remaining teams will SP from the reconnaissance compound here on Harmony Church. They'll do a final charge, a run to Brave Rifles Field, and then on Brave Rifles Field they'll do a number of physically demanding events competing against each other, and then a final run across the finish line. So, you know, if there's limited opportunity to come out and see the events, that's probably the one that you'll want to see because all the teams will be in the same place competing against each other. And then that'll be followed by an awards ceremony here on Harmony Church as well.
So thank you for spending the time with us today. If you're interested in coming out and seeing, please visit the benning.army.mil website for information for all the details that you'll need. And I'm looking forward to the competition. Colonel, thank you for spending time with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
For the Benning Report, I'm David Wright with Lieutenant Colonel James Hayes. Back to you in the studio.
Coming up next, we will have the highlights of all the great moments from the Best Ranger competition. It's been compared to the Ironman and Eco Challenges, and it's not for the faint of heart. The 32nd annual David E. Grange Jr. Best Ranger competition pits some of the best 2-man Ranger teams in the Army against each other, while they're completing more than 60 hours of competition events, all with very little rest and just the tools they have in their heads, their hands, and their rucksacks.
It's 0600 on day 1 of the competition, and 51 teams are ready to duke it out for the title of Best Ranger, which signifies the most elite and physically fit Ranger team in the Army.
Today is about endurance, and you got to stay at least in the middle of the pack or towards the front. If you can get through the first day, it's almost a guarantee you're going to finish the competition. And so day 1 will probably be a total of about 40 miles on their feet, whether it's running or carrying a rucksack. So it's pretty strenuous day 1.
I would call it Rap Week rolled up into one day. Day 1 is a physical gut check. You just got to survive it. They make cuts, and a lot of teams tend to cut themselves on day 1 just because it's so physically demanding and they just don't make it.
After crushing early morning push-ups, sit-ups, and a 5-mile run, competitors attempt to tackle the brutal Malvesti obstacle course.
It's really just about the endurance from coming in from the PT test and the unknown distance run, and then coming straight onto here with very little break and being able to execute the lower body exercises as well as the upper body exercises and the high obstacles, and having the muscular endurance to be able to get through the course.
haunted by the Malvesti last year because I did so bad on it. So this year we came out, took it slow, just
keep the hands dry.
Made sure to do every event correctly, and we got through it without any no-goes.
One thing that Rangers pride themselves on is being able to infiltrate an objective through land, sea, or air. To test these skills, competitors ran to Victory Pond, then swam 650 meters.
For us, the big thing was just pacing yourself, really pacing yourself. I know like the way that like Rolfus wants to go, my partner here, you know, he just always wants to push out in front. He just wants to beat everybody. And so ultimately we're trying to look at how we're going to beat everyone in the long term. You know, so that's having a good pace plan, and so far we've been staying pretty true to that.
And after a morning full of strenuous physical activity, competitors had to prove they were mentally tough by focusing during the stress shoot.
Mentally, I think just comes with the job that they do every day in the Army. You know, as Rangers, it's essentially a state of mind, living the Ranger creed. These guys are born with those instincts. It's not something they take on once they start to train for Best Ranger. It's something that they live on a daily basis.
The deciding factor of day one, an unknown distance foot march, culled the field of competitors for day two's events. Of the 51 teams who started the competition, only 24 made the cut to carry on. Katie Cook, Fort Benning TV.
After a day full of blood, sweat, and tears, Rangers moved on to land navigation, a foot march of unknown distance and night stakes. How far would they go? Who would make the cut? Dawn broke on day two, revealing only 24 of the original 51 teams still standing.
Day two of the 2015 Best Ranger competition is underway, and less than half the original teams lined up at day stakes to prove they have the stamina to keep up with the physical rigor and mental exhaustion they will endure over the next 2 days. Exhausted from day one, Rangers have had little food and minimal sleep. They will have to push through to prove they have what it takes to move through 6 events, displaying excellence in all they do, like rock wall climbs, rappels, caving ladders, and more.
All right, keep it up. Good pace, good pace.
Rangers have to be able to operate in multiple types of environments, the mountainous environment being one of them, so it shows their proficiency and their mountaineering skills and ability to overcome that type of environment.
Almost there, get that board.
In first place are eventual champions, Sergeants First Class Briggs and Lemma. Teams put their strategy to the test, making sure these timed events are done quickly, and equally important, that they're done correctly.
I'm looking for that they're actually using the lane as a real scenario. They're really thinking through the lane, how they're going to save that casualty, not a mannequin. They want to save that casualty that's a battle buddy of theirs or a Ranger buddy of theirs.
Simulating a downed helo, soldiers move into the Ranger first responder lane and conduct a rescue operation. In the Army, anyone can be a first responder, which is why tactical combat casualty care, care under fire, and evacuation care is critical.
Get it up! Get it up!
Each and every one of those teams out there wants to be the best Ranger, but each and every one of those teams would protect and give their lives for their fellow soldiers on the battlefield, and you can see that every day. And that's what's important.
Moving into day three, 2/3 of the competition comes to a close, and the end is in sight. All that stands between them and victory is a helocast and the combat water survival assessment.
With the lack of sleep, lack of food, they're going to be drained mentally and physically, but these competitors are amongst the best in the world. I mean, they've been training for months on end coming into this competition. These guys are fierce individuals, type A personalities, and they're not going to allow themselves to fail.
That's him, man.
Well, the one key thing I think that all the top teams and all the teams possess was grit and determination.
Come on, right here, to me.
Each of them had to reach deep down inside of themselves and perform at a level that they didn't expect to have to perform at in order to emerge on top.
As teams move through the 35-foot log walk, rope drop, and 75-foot suspension traverse, it may seem like an individual event to the spectators, but eyes are not far from their Ranger buddy.
Hold it, feet up.
Cheers rally each other on, and the final run is all or nothing, and together. These teams know that they must rely and trust on their Ranger buddy, and never was it more clear than as they cross the finish line. Equally tired, equally motivated, and equally excited. Melissa Bell, Fort Benning TV.
After the break, exceptional athletes run, roll, and jump for the gold. April is Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Month, and Fort Benning is doing its part to increase awareness and stop sexual assault and harassment. Two events that help launch this month's theme have leadership rallied and soldiers and families aware.
Fort Benning leadership gathered to kick off a month-long awareness and prevention campaign highlighting sexual assault and harassment. This year, the Army's theme is Not in My Squad. Not in our Army, we are trusted professionals. A message that leaders at all levels have the responsibility to eliminate sexual assault. To help ramp up this month of awareness, soldiers and spouses gathered for a self-defense and awareness class, highlighting everything from prevention to escape.
I talked to every rapist I could find, and I says, why did you choose her?
With over 20 years in law enforcement experience, one thing Faye stresses is the importance of prevention. And this means adjusting how you may present yourself to avoid becoming a target.
Whenever you slouch or lean forward, you look like a person who's not confident about something, which speaks volumes to a predator that you're weak in some way. Although that may not be what you are, but it is how they are going to choose you instead of someone else.
Make eye contact, know where you're going, and move with a purpose. This class is not about tricks, but about real-life situations and how to survive.
As soon as you know what my intentions are, what should be your thought? 90% of all fights go to the ground. So what I do is I tell and teach how to get to the ground safely. So if I'm going to the ground, I'm going to the ground on my terms.
In this class, participants will react to contact, so if a real-life situation occurs, they'll know how to respond.
You want to aim for the lickies and chewies, kittles and bitch, and the moneymaker.
Because the last thing you want is to be taken to a second location.
If they ever take you to a second location, your chances of survival decreases by 100%. You're probably going to die. Whoa!
So make an escape opportunity and run in the direction where the population is the greatest, where there's lights and where there's people, and run making noise.
You need to say things that are inappropriate for the public to hear.
From leadership to soldiers, civilians, and family members, everyone is doing their part to eliminate sexual assault. And the knowledge taught in this class could be the difference between a person living a normal life or a person constantly trying to recover from being attacked. Melissa Bell, Fort Benning TV.
Many school-age children and teens with special needs share a desire to compete in sports. Fort Benning reached out to school districts off-post this year to make the second annual Exceptional Family Member Program Field Day a success. David Wright found the Field Day competitors displayed examples of human performance, much like that of the Rangers.
The second annual Exceptional Family Member Program Field Day kicked off with a ceremonial lighting of the torch. The Field Day is held for exceptional athletes in the area, those who do not normally get an opportunity to participate in sporting events.
General Miller has 4 or 5 major priorities, and one of those priorities is taking care of our soldiers and families, but it's also outreach to the communities.
The Field Day was the culmination of 6 months of planning. This year, successful partnering with multiple school districts allowed this event to be much larger in scope than the inaugural event 1 year ago.
It's through the school districts and the local community and the Fort Benning school districts that we were able to reach out, stretch our net across the community, and today we'll have more than 1,000 exceptional athletes out here from 6 school districts.
Most of the events took place on Stuart Watson Field and ranged from lawn bowling to punt, pass, and kick. The athletes had their chance to show off their free throw skills and even take their shot at the soccer goals. Meanwhile, Smith Gym hosted all the wheelchair events for over 60 athletes that otherwise could not have participated.
I think to the kids this is going to be a memorable day. All you have to do is go out and watch these events and watch the smiles on their face, and it's just about having fun.
The event would not be possible without tremendous volunteer participation. Over 500 volunteers from Fort Benning were on hand, and the schools brought another 300 to help give these special athletes the personal attention they need.
You wake up every day and go to school and you think that's, you think that stinks, but then you get around these kids and they don't ever really get to go in the gym and play with us. So having the ability to come out here and just run around and play with them, it's been inspiring. It's fun.
Garrison Commander Colonel Michael Herter and Command Sergeant Major Kevin Floyd handed out medals to each athlete on a day when clearly everyone was a winner.
I'm sure we'll be getting a lot of phone calls from our sister installations across the Army saying, hey, how'd you do this great event for your community?
Such a positive response to last year's event meant that Fort Benning Morale, Welfare, and Recreation knew they would be doing it again. The tremendous success this year assures the future of the Field Day as an annual event. David Wright, Fort Benning TV.
Coming up next, rockets and robots designed by Fort Benning's next generation. Students at Fort Benning Stowers Elementary spent their Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math Week exploring space. From rockets to robots, I was there as these students orbited through different activities.
No organization on Fort Benning knows more about robotic gadgets than the Maneuver Battle Lab. So when it was time for these Stowers students to learn how to explore the cosmos as part of their STEM program, pairing these junior scientists with the experts at the Battle Lab was a match made in heaven.
We actually have been exploring a lot about the Mars rover. A lot of our activities have been about how do we do a safe landing for a Mars rover. A lot of kids have engineered designs for parachutes, and they've just investigated more about unmanned devices that have been sent to Mars and why we send them there.
Today, students are using Newton's famous law of motion, and that is for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. Students are using gunpowder to launch the rockets, taking note of how gravity, air resistance, and thrust affect the rocket's ability to blast off. Students then designed Stomp rockets, using air power instead of gunpowder to achieve liftoff.
When the children can actually manipulate an object and actually see it, then they learn the concepts. Just reading a passage or taking notes on a passage is not going to build that concrete knowledge. They really have to go through the actions of being engaged in some hands-on activities for them to understand it and get that abstract thinking.
The STEM program encourages students to learn through trial and error. And instead of failing, many students succeeded in learning the many ways launching rockets doesn't work.
Today, a few of the rockets didn't work out as well because the igniter wasn't hooked up right to the electric charger, or something was wrong with the wadding or something, so we just have to fix our mistakes. If something happened, it was good that it happened because then we get to learn from our mistakes to make it work next time.
The students are not afraid to fail. Like if their activity doesn't go well, they know to improve it. And a lot of times, students are afraid of failure, and in this sense it's a good thing because we're showing them that they can learn from their mistakes.
3, 2, 1, Katie Cook, Fort Benning TV.
Now there's a story just for David, rockets and robots.
Well, true, but he'd wonder where the Jedis and the aliens are.
No aliens, but they did bring a portable planetarium and teach kids about astronomy and outer space.
Well, who knows? Maybe that inspired the next Neil Armstrong. And that'll bring this edition of the Benning Report to an end.
But you can watch these stories and others on youtube.com/BenningTV or at benning.army.mil.
And you can also like us on Facebook.
From the Public Affairs Office, thanks for watching.